Ready? Okay, so I'm going to call to order the Hamilton Boone Madison Socialist Cooperative Meeting for 14 November 2025. It's 9 a.m. And so this is an official call to order. At this time, I'll give time if there are any public participation. Anybody in the public here to speak today? That will throw me off, that feedback.
Is it screaming for that computer up there? And mute it.
We're down to my.
That's
not
screaming on your computer.
That's not gonna do anything. You need to put that back to see what's on there. It's not gonna pick them up. No, I don't.
Okay.
I put it back. It's this computer you're hearing too.
Very soon.
Right.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, all right.
Thank you, Dan. Still working out the kinks.
Okay, that's okay. This is, thank goodness we have superintendent / tech director.
Saying that, Bill.
So, okay, back to the public participation. Is there any members of the public wish to speak? Seeing none, we'll move forward. So we'll move to the approval of the governance board minutes from 9/12/2025. Can I first get a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, open for discussion. Any issues with the minutes? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any approved? Okay, motion carries. Cooperative reports, Dr. Warmoth.
Okay, let me move into talking first the budgets, the federal grants. So unfortunately, when they open them up, they're sideways. I've got to figure out how to do that better, but the first one is the FY24 Part B grant, which we're almost completely have spent that, and we're just waiting on some non-public school money for your districts to send, but that one it's being spent as planned. It's supposed to be being all done. The second one is the early childhood FY24 grant, which also we just have a little bit of non-pub money. We're waiting to get to reimburse the districts and are getting requests from your districts to a couple of your districts to pay out, and we will close both of those out. And then I will pay the I will submit the final report for those two grants. Those grants went as planned. I did put in here just to for your monitoring, I did submit 2 modifications for the 611 grant since our last meeting. One, we had a mix-up and needed to clean up one on the last day, and that's why there were been 2. But those are in there just for the board's information and for your review. The next one is the FY25 611 grant. So that is the grant that we are have used to basically fund the program for last year. The money that's left over there is just a little bit of leftover money that wasn't spent in the HBM budget, and then non-public school money that your districts are always a little behind in spending, but we have a 27-month period to spend that. And so that grant also is moving along as budgeted. The 619 grant for the FY25 619 has a little bit of money, and I'm sounding like a broken record. It's non-public money, non-public school money that needs to be spent, and your districts are working to spend them. Then for our new grant, I just put in here, we have received the approval from both the FY26 611 grant and 619 grant. So I've submitted the applications on your behalf, and those have both been approved, and those will be used to fund the core services for HBM for the coming year. Any questions about any of the grants? All right. The next budgets in there are the HBM budgets. They in these, you'll notice that the expenditures are listed, but the actual budget is not in there yet. I ask your forgiveness. As Dan will tell you, you cannot walk to this building right now without bumping into an auditor. They're being, we are being, HBM is being audited, Noblesville is being audited, and their Medicaid program is being audited. So Susan, who does a great job with getting these reports to me, had not gotten our current budget in these, but is of course tracking the expenditures. We will clean that up for next time. But I think I can report that all of the HBM budget expenditures are going up according to budget, and no concerns there. So sorry about that, but that's what we are. So, and I just mentioned, we are in the middle. There are auditors who have been here all week looking at HBM stuff. I would say it seems like they're being more thorough than they've ever been before, and are asking for lots of things. I involved that with auditors, and they're doing their jobs. But that's we're in the middle of that, so we'll eventually report back on that. The next thing is our due process, our dispute resolution report. So the top one there in the report is a Noblesville due process case that we recently settled. So as I will say, a little bit of a frustrating one in that I think we settled. It was a good decision. I think the school would have prevailed if we went to hearing, but it was would have cost us more to prevail than to settle, and so we did settle that one. The second one is a complaint, and you'll see the bottom line was that there was no violation found. The third one is another due process which was filed. And I think we are very close to settling this one, and we've been exchanging settlement agreements and are very close to settling that one. I anticipate it being done by the end of next week. And then the final one is family filed a complaint at the beginning of the year. A family who had not been in the Noblesville school since last December. We got a request for records, but it wasn't in the usual format. There was a misspelling of the name, and and then we were also implementing the new IEP program. And there was a delay in us sending the records to the new school. We were found, so there was a violation there. And then we're acting to implement the corrective action. And then the parent filed a request for due process, but the parents we've scheduled 2 resolution sessions and they canceled just before the session both times. We had a pre-hearing conference on Wednesday. They didn't show up for that. The hearing officer has issued a notice of dismissal and the parents have 7 days to reply to that. So I think this is going away, but it's been an unusual one, but it is what it is. So any questions about any of those? All right, personnel report. I gave that to Melissa, but I just see that we won't even open that one there. That we have not hired or lost any employees since the last time we met. So no report.
Perfect.
Okay, so that's all we have for the co-op.
Okay, so we're going to move on to old business, teacher appreciation grant. Melissa, you're up.
Yeah, so last time we had a meeting, we did discuss the teacher appreciation grant, and since then, we've had some updates. So the document here will capture the updates. Most of the information that I'll review, if you choose to follow along with the link, is on the far right column of the table under status update. So we submitted that job form as an independent, as we talked through for the last meeting, and we identified our eligible positions based on the criteria that DOE had established. So you can see we had 22 teachers within the HBM positions that qualified for the DOE requirements. From then, last week, we did receive the allocations similar to your districts. The amount we received was 10,500. So with that, trying to figure out what our next steps look like to continue with the timeline as the bigger due date comes in January. We reviewed this with local directors as we met with them last week and then bringing it to you guys today as well. The next area in the paperwork, DOE has asked to make some definitions using some of the terms that were in the form. So those are developing. I'd like to get more feedback from the directors, but I have some descriptions of those up above the chart. And then for our process, as you know, many of us are trying to finalize the details, but we have kind of developed a draft and a skeleton of that process. So with the January timeline from DOE, we would anticipate around the December 5th time period sharing the application process to teachers. What we envision that looking like is a Google form with some open-ended questions so that they can describe and share how they meet the IDOE criteria. We are thinking those will be due around January 9th and give them about a week after returning from winter break to catch up on that. And then moving into January 23rd, our target to identify those recipients to get them to DOE by their due date at the end of January. For the review of the applications, we have a couple options that we have listed there. The first one is to contract with an external entity. In the big picture, our goal is to be fair and inclusive as possible to make sure that we can pass along the funds to the teachers, making sure that everybody does have that fair opportunity. So that external entity is an option to support that. The co-op is in a unique position where with different oversight, different evaluation systems, different administrators supporting them, it's very difficult to have a big picture of all of those employees with multiple people. So option one is the outside institute. Option two, we could develop a local committee of administrators and directors, knowing that we would have to have a fair representation across districts to be able to speak to those individuals. But either of those processes, we were planning to have the information redacted. So it's just looking at the content versus the person in the application. I did make a note down there in the DOE language, teachers should be fully licensed in the subject area for which they are awarded. So that's something else that we will be monitoring through this process. So what we would like to propose is for the governing board to approve the plan, including the opportunity to pursue option 1 or 2 as we progress with the plan.
So we can only give it to 3 people.
Yes, sorry.
So I wouldn't overthink this and I wouldn't put a lot of money and effort into this, I guess is all I'm gonna say. Because it's only 3 people and it's only 10 grand. Contract sounds like we're gonna spend money to do that. I would not do that at all. I think that's overthinking. In my opinion. I don't think it's worth spending any extra money on them.
It's low amount. When we saw that 10,500 with the calculation.
So, I don't know. I think Dave was on Zoom this morning, I don't know if everybody else was. We talked about this because someone else asked about their cooperatives in a different part of the state and this, and they got some weird guidance, the way they applied. They did not get separate money. And I said, well, actually, I looked because I couldn't remember. And I said, well, ours did. So then everyone was all perplexed on how HBM was able to get money. And I don't know, but we did.
Just interrupt at the bottom of the list. There were 4 or 5 co-ops
5.
who got it.
Yeah, but a lot, I think, applied through their LEA, so they just roped them into their whole pool, which is what I was afraid was gonna happen, so I'm glad you pursued it this way to carve it out, to keep it as 2 entities, so it doesn't feel like one's taken from the other, that's exactly what they're gonna have to deal with now. So that's good, but I don't know the back end. It is interesting though, that based on your numbers, that means the state really only gave you enough money for 13%.
Right.
For your teachers,
Right.
which none of us are getting 20%. No,
Right, I wondered about that.
but,
Ain't an even number you guys got.
I
Nobody.
feel like they just said, well, we'll give you something, so they just rounded it nice and easy for you. But because nobody else is probably even. The rest of us are either gonna have money left over, or we have to chip in to make it even.
Well, it's not, and it's not even, I mean, and it's 13%, assuming we only give the tier 3, which, and they've encouraged us to use all 3 tiers, because if we give a tier 1, we can give 1.
I'm guessing, well, you got that backwards, tier 1's bottom.
Okay.
But I'm guessing most schools are only gonna do tier 1 this year, just so you know. So yeah, I would not overtake this.
So if I could, ask, Dr. Howard, could you make the motion since you have?
Oh, sorry.
expertise, So we
Yeah,
can get that on the record, please.
Yeah, motion to talk about this. Yeah, motion to consider.
Okay, second,
Second,
okay. Any further discussion on the matter?
No, I mean, I was on the call with you, Dan, I wouldn't spend a lot of time on this, I think the fact. It is what it is at this point, I think we're all gonna start working on our Google Sheets to send out to our teachers, let our teachers fill it out, get a committee together. We'll all work together to figure out who's getting it. And it's- I appreciate all the work and everything going into it, but I think that's what a lot of us are learning, we're gonna put a lot of work on it as a result.
Yeah. Yeah.
and, to minimize my work, when you get the Google Sheet questionnaire, will you send that out to the
Yes.
group? Yeah.
That's the next thing we're all going to be doing.
Yeah.
Right? Yes.
So, yeah, just share friends, and the video. The,
Many other friends.
Noblesville, I just locked down our committee of admins and teachers who will work on our plan. We're not gonna meet flush at Thanksgiving break, but we're gonna meet immediately after Thanksgiving break to talk through the guidance again, decide on how, what exactly we think should be the criteria that someone can qualify, and then we are absolutely gonna do an application process. And you tell me if you think you need it. I just want some agreement on the front end of if we have more than the number, then that's what the decisions will have to be made. I'm assuming we will.
And if we have more, we're doing the same thing, and we're that into it, because if we have more, we're leaning towards seniority a little bit. That's been the only request. It's the only request.
My request from the association was zero involvement.
There you go.
We're very adamant about that.
I've got a couple of, among the two I have that are helping me do it, that are all in the interview group.
I'm assuming what you want us just to see if they come up with, see if we're okay it. Again, you're an active Friday Zoom member. There's gonna be lots of sharing here shortly. Yeah, everybody's building. I think we're gonna start a whole pile for them. Good. So if you want to see lots of examples, you can see what works.
Okay, I think we'll move to voting. Everybody's had time to weigh in on this. So everybody in favor of the teacher appreciation grant as presented by Melissa with the advice of the various board members, say aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. On this exclusion.
This is this required to have a board approval?
No,
No,
it's actually,
no.
the
Which
only
is fine.
requirement is you do it. I mean, that's really all the requirement is. I know,
I thought for one.
Asking for a friend.
yeah.
Which is funny because the old model, you had to literally have a board policy.
Right.
And now there's no board oversight at all. Required at the moment.
Asking for a friend too. Did everybody get the letter though that said do not talk to this with other people and all that? I got a letter that basically told me a reminder that I'm not to share this or spend time talking with my associate and stuff too. Yeah. So you didn't get that?
Who sent that?
I got one from DOE. I'll find it and send it to you guys to entertain.
Are they just reminding you this is bargain?
Yeah, it was just one of those. I actually opened it up in the middle of me bargaining. That's your.
Is it just you, Dave? Is it something going on?
Yeah, I guess so. That's what I was saying. Sure.
You might want to look into that.
I gotta stop talking about this on camera.
Okay, we're gonna move on to seclusion and restraint reporting, Dr. Warnoff.
I'm bringing back to you, a proposal that I presented back in September. And it had to do with exclusion and restraint data for Mosaic students. Since Mosaics is housed up at Hamilton Heights, all of those exclusion and restraints have gone in the annual report submitted by Hamilton Heights. And the board asked for more information about how other folks do it. I really had trouble finding peers that have similar programs. And when I brought it up to one peer who had it, they really didn't have any idea how it was happening. So it hasn't come up as an issue there. I think what I've added down here though is, where this data goes, it doesn't really show up, I think, anywhere unless you go looking for it. But DOE does do an annual report that I've linked in there. And that annual report, they take a sample of 3 districts who have submitted data. So it's not like everybody's name. So Hamilton Heights has not appeared in that report the last 3 years, but certainly could. More to the point is the second bullet, and these are from a couple of years ago, from 2023. But at that point, WFOI did do a story and put a link in there where you could look up any district. And when you look up Hamlin Heights, their numbers seem really high for their size. So it is, Derek and I talked about this. He doesn't, I don't want to speak for it. I don't think feel strongly about it. I don't either. But I do think just as far as we're a co-op, to be fair about this, if this was, anyone ever did dig into it, it doesn't make sense for Hamilton Heights to have all of that seclusion and restraint data reported on them when it's actually students from all of our districts. So and I did put a table down there in the bottom just to give you an idea. These were the numbers from last year for seclusion restraint for your districts. And then these would be numbers that would be coming back to you at the end of the year. We did put in there a thing too, that, we would keep your directors informed. And in that sense, I think this is actually an improvement. If Sheridan is sending a student and you find out that student's being restrained every day as a director, you should be saying, hey, Mosaics, what's going on there? Right? I think it would increase our communication and be a good thing. So I'm bringing this back and really just making the same recommendation I made before, but I think a little more informed now than I was when I made it. That we put in place this process of sending the seclusion and restraint data back to districts for you to include in your end of the year report. So ask for report.
So can I get a motion to approve seclusion and restraint for reporting the new process?
Only question I had, Steve, you were gonna look, is that the way the other co-ops do it?
I had trouble, there are so few programs like Mosaics. There are kids who cross district lines more for programs like life skills and so on, but the exclusion or restraint isn't as big of a deal there. So I didn't find anybody else who's really taken this on. I don't know that other folks are doing it this way, but I think it's the right for our program and our situation. I think it's the right way to do it.
So looking for a motion. Second,
Second.
all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Let's move forward, on to, new business, staff compensation.
Okay, since our staff are mostly covered by the teachers, kind of asked Dan just to give us an update on the Noblesville contract.
Yeah, so, we settled board approved 2 weeks ago or so, I think. It's being processed and currently going around doing my roadshow, all the schools to explain all the changes. I don't know how deep in the weeds you want me to get. Most significantly, we didn't move the scale, but we retained the same scale from the last contract. And we are allowing everyone to move their step if they're eligible for step. So everyone moved one step on the bachelor side, that's like a 2.3, 2.4, I think, percent move. On the master side, it's a 3% move, ish. And then we made some changes. We've historically had a Viva contribution. We actually ended that, or will end that at the end of December, so that we could take that money and put it towards facilitating those salary moves instead. We felt that was a better use of money. So we did that. Health insurance stayed pretty flat for the most part. A big jump for anybody. For what it's worth, administrators are not getting a salary increase this year at Noblesville schools. Instead, we're doing a one-time 2% contribution into either Viva or their 401. So it's not an ongoing expense. It's just a one-time, so they get something because they're all working their tails off too and need something. But we weren't comfortable doing any sort of salary increase right now. So he's more to dig into.
No, I just, it's the board. So, I mean, the impact on HBM is that means all of our folks who are on the teacher's contract are getting that about a step if on the salary schedule and those other adjustments. Yeah. Any questions about that? So then I'll just go on, Mike. Okay, so then that impacts our school psych. And OTs and PTs are not part of the collective bargaining unit, but we do use the teacher's contract as a base for establishing their compensation, and there's a stipend added on. And so I have updated this, although as Dan said, it looks very much like last year's. It's just most of our folks will move up a step. So I'd ask, it's okay, I'll do both these together. And also there is a certified occupational therapy assistant salary schedule. And this I used last year's and added 2%. So they are classified employees, so they're not, but that's the way I came up with these. Well, based on our operating agreement, really Noblesville determines compensation. We've generally had this board approve these to give Nobles because it impacts all of you. And then Noblesville will use these for setting the salary schedule for school psychs, OTs, PTs, and certified occupational therapy assistants. So I'd ask for approval of those two salary schedules.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve the school psych, OT, and PT salary schedule as well as the CODA salary schedule?
So moved.
Second? Second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Moving on.
Okay, the next proposal for employing a school psych intern for next school year. Generally, I ask for approval of funding positions through the budget process, but we've had a school psych intern for years. It's a great recruiting tool. 6 of our current 16 school psychs were interns for us. And it's also just great for our staff it keeps them fresh and it is a good thing. We this year did not employ one for a couple of reasons. We didn't feel like the way it worked out, we didn't get a strong candidate, so we did not hire one. So there's not one in our current year's budget. But in December and January, right now is when we start getting inquiries, and we've learned that we don't offer somebody one by January. The good ones are all gone. So since I won't be asking for funding this position until the spring, I'd like to ask the board to approve funding for allowing me to post a school psych intern position for next school year. And then that will be, of course, included in the funding. I think it's we're all watching budgets closely, but this is a good investment in the future. We do have some retirements at the end of this year as well as next year anticipated. So I'd ask just for permission to post a school psych internship position for next school year.
Can I get a motion from the post?
So moved.
Second. Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Did you say that we have one this year?
We do not.
We do
Do
not.
not.
Okay.
On the CPI grading?
All right, HBM provides CPI training for the districts. We've used this. It's a well-established program. We've used it for years. My trainers I'm losing a trainer at the end of this semester. It is a costly training, about $4,000. They typically provide 7 to 10 day long training. So these can't be people who have a classroom or something like that. They have been either our professional development staff, school psychs, who have done that. I've had a couple of non-HBM employees, folks who work for your district, express interest in being a trainer. And and just having folks who we can have do these trainings is just more cost efficient than sending people out or bringing them in. So I'd like to propose that, and giving me permission to fund someone from one of your districts, an administrator, to become a trainer. And in exchange, they would be available to provide, we came up with eight days of training per year to work with us. And that would mean they would do CPI training, and people when we do those trainings, they're not just by district, but people from other districts can come, from any of the districts can come to the trainings. And it would allow us, so that the Franklin LaPel directors, both of them actually volunteered and expressed interest in becoming a trainer. There's the safety specialist at Options has volunteered, and I think it could be a good way for us to meet a need and invest in some people who are around the co-op. I haven't specified who in this recommendation, but I guess would ask for approval of this, and then I'd work to identify the best folks to do that.
Okay, can I get a motion for the proposal for developing CPI trainers?
I just had a question. Do we know what the turnover rate at HBM? People who have typically been trained versus if we go out in the buildings, it seems like, to me, we have a lot of turnover. And I don't wanna spend $4,000 and then them leave in a year or two. Is my concern.
Piggyback on this, Noblesville had a thing a couple years ago that when you did X amount of staff development, you signed something that we really couldn't hold them to, but looked like you could. It said you had to stay in the district for like 5 years or something like that.
Yeah, I wrote that. It
Yeah.
had some backing, I think that was right before I left town somewhere. But it was basically, we spent a certain amount of money. And you had to stay a certain, it was a scale, as we
Yeah.
spent, and we did learn there was a little backing to it, but basically it's semi-funded.
It is hard to enforce, but
Yes.
that's right. I heard that. That's good. So you're spending we're basically AP training all of the teachers for our surrounding districts.
Right.
Then pay more. We train them, then they become enticed by the Bowie schools and they just snap.
I'm familiar with that.
So
So my questions would be, I mean, I would love to see something that would say, if we train you, you're gonna commit to staying within HBM for X number of years. And then why 3 and why not more? Is that budget related, or it'd be nice to have one from every district if you could do that. But I don't know, that's 4,000 times.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, the more people we train, that's more money. I certainly, finding somebody from each district might be an issue. So, I came up trying to estimate what I think we need, the number of days of training we provided in the past, and three trainers. Four would be, if we could get, we've had 3 and it kind of stretches them. If we could have 4, it would be better, so. There's not a black and white rule here. I guess I would, yeah.
Try to change the process basically and start having some more people do it.
Yes,
Is it worth to try to do it that way? Yes, because I know you have some turnover, but hopefully if we hand select some of our admin, maybe that's not leaving us anytime soon, or at least we don't think they are, might help too.
and I guess, Sterling's point, I think, part of the selection process, as I select someone, obviously I can't have them, they're not indentured servants, I can't make them stay forever, but I think we want to be careful about who we select and try and make the best guess that they're gonna be folks who will stay around.
Well, I'll make a motion that, on your proposal, that we would fund the training of, instead of 3, up to 4. And that they sign a commitment letter that they're gonna stay within the HBM cooperative for, what'd you get, 5 years? What was that?
It wasn't that long, because you're only talking $4,000, right? I think we was like 2 to 3 at that scale. I
3.
could find that.
A commitment letter of 3 years, and knowing that it may not be completely enforceable, but. So I'd make a motion that we fund the training up to 4 staff members who are employed by member school districts, and that they sign a commitment that they'll stay within HBM for 3 years.
Can I get a second to that motion?
so
Any other discussion on the motion? Seems like there was some,
We just asked we would bring it, keep it on record, bring it back in a couple of years. I mean, let's see if this works.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Then, I put it here, the ADM fall,
I'm gonna bring it in. We've talked about it recently.
Is that the one we're doing a project? You can't pull my computer dots.
I think we still have it.
Just let me know.
Keep going.
All right. I just put in here the ADM counts for this fall, since this is what we will use for billing for the current school year. I every year have the board review this and just approve it for billing purposes. Want to make sure I have the right numbers, ADM counts for your district. So Joan did reach out to each of your districts and collected this information. So I'd ask for approval of the ADM data for fall 25 that will be used for the 25-26 billing.
Can I get a motion? So moved. The second,
Second.
any discussion on these percentages? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Yeah.
Opposed? Okay. Reports. Melissa, I think you're back up.
The first report is on special programs in December 1 count. So the directors, as you know, have been working very hard on this process. This year is unique with the Power School special programs being the driver of December 1 count student data reporting through DEX. We did hear from IDOE yesterday that it's about 95% of student numbers of reporting as compared to last year. That was just statewide perspective, not local district. They've given us a few target reports to generate from special programs to identify any students with errors. And that's kind of where the directives are typically at this point, is working through those errors. And it can be one small data point that's causing a student to not report. So as you know, this is a busy time and somewhat stressful time for them as they try to make sure all of their records are accurate and connecting with TORs to validate information. We are all ready for the December 1 process to complete successfully. We do have a period until mid-December for the completion of the report, but December 1, as you know, is the day of student count. So any questions about that? We did also share an adjusted funding model for the different areas of eligibility. It's not a significant adjustment. Most of them, some of them are even like $20, $50, $100 per area. But there is a new funding model according to the different areas of needs. There's the three. So that will be used for calculation of the fund. Right. The second report is on the procedures work group. There's a link there for you just to review. But as we collaborate with directors, common thing over the years is just the difficulty to do all of the tasks of the job. As we're focused on December 1 and all the other components, manifestation meetings, it's hard to do all the things. So the procedures is one of the topics that directors are often challenged with, designating that time, having that time to validate and create all of the procedures that drive SPED. We're also hearing from IDOE that the importance of this, anytime that there is a complaint, a due process of audit, they're coming in to see our procedures. And so it's very critical that those are readily available and appropriate. So we are going to help to develop this collaboration system to support directors in that. HBM has worked over time to make sure that districts have that leadership internally, and it's not totally led by HBM, but we are going to continue that with supporting and helping them to be more efficient. But the individual directors will still lead their process and determine their local procedures, just using that collective knowledge and expertise to try to help support that process. So in the end, we're hoping to support districts in developing more consistent, efficient local procedures so that they can guide their department. We're doing a monthly work session on that. So that's our plan at this point. Any questions there?
You may not like my question. I've been around a long time in the co-op. We used to have policy and procedure training and admin, and we had a lot of turnover this year in our admin. I'm not proposing another 3-hour meeting to sit and listen to that, but with the advent of technology, at some point when these are established, could we get something maybe in the learning lab or something so we could do, because some of our principals and some of our admin, they forget or they don't know or something. So some type of maybe online training that they could do on their own that we could expect them, and we could participate as well, but to be able to do, and not this year necessarily, but maybe that might be a goal down the road.
I personally can see some small topics being targeted in that manner. The challenge is going to be as we develop procedures specific to like how we manage paperwork, how we manage student data processing. Each district has utilized different resources. Like here's this Google form that drives this procedure. And so that level would be hard to drive from the co-op, but the guidance of manifestations, the guidance of the legal components, that's something that I think we can create some resources for.
No, that's a great question. So I guess I'm old enough I can talk about history now, but you know, when I started here, it was about that thick, the HBM procedure book. And every fall, I would go around and meet in every district and we'd go through procedures and what we've done, and I think appropriate so, is kind of said, you know, it shouldn't be HBM procedures, but each district should have procedures. But I think there's been a little bit of a gap in that just local directors don't have time to keep it up and do training. And so I know in looking at the different districts, some districts have better procedures than others. And then when you get somebody new, that institutional knowledge is gone. And so what the vision and what Melissa described here, it's something that, you know, I've had in mind that we need to sort of have at least a shared, maybe a shell procedure or something that or at least have districts looking at each other procedures so that everybody has all of the components. They might look a little different in Franklin-Appel than they do at South Madison or wherever else, but at least everybody would have that. And I have to say, Melissa, I want to commend Melissa. She brought the energy to get this conversation going, and that's been a good thing. So I think your comment, we do hear that, and I think us creating something that at least can be used to train new people so that when people move on, we don't lose that. Is that, I'm kind of capturing what you're.
Yeah, and you know, I'm getting questions right now. We have 2 new directors and, you know, how long do we have to collect data on behavior and before we can do something? And I'm not the expert. I don't know. And so, you know, if we had some kind of reinforcement, it doesn't have to be a 3-hour elaborate training, but just some basic things for admin to know so they can share that out and be more knowledgeable, I think would be good.
I think this will move us in that we're definitely on the same page. This moves us in that direction and we'll get there.
Okay. Anything else for the good of the order before we adjourn?
I just, received an email from Anne Marie, from the DOE when she was doing the, presentations on the tag during the, district meetings. I had asked, you know, these amounts aren't necessarily, evenly divided. So depending on who gets the award and the amount, we may, you know, she was stressing the fact that she wants the district to use the money and doesn't want any money coming back. And I said, well, what happens if, you know, we distribute in the increments and we end up with $1,000 left over or $500 left over? I said, can the district contribute? And she said, it's a good question. I don't know. And so she just emailed back, and I don't know if she's announced that or not, but I just got an email back from her that says that they want the districts to do that to make the numbers even. So I just thought I'd share that since we were just talking about time.
Good.
Yeah. When I asked her if we could do it, she says, I don't know. So,
and remember too, because we can talk about this, Ryan, remember too, even though it doesn't explicitly say that we can, and 98% we can't, legislature has said, no, you should be able to do this and try to quickly fix that. You can still pull all the taxes and everything out of that money. So just like the old tag, you get $3,500, but you won't actually get $3,500 because the district's don't take part to pay all the required stuff. The districts don't have to keep that money. Hopefully they fix that quickly. Supposedly they're going to get that done. So.
Okay, motion adjourned. Second. All those in favor? All right, yes, yeah, done. All right. Everybody's had what you said. The next one is questions.
Oh,
Do we have any special announcements about that?
Yes, you should. So the next